Understanding safety protocols and trends, meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast. I think I heard somebody pop in. Oh, there. We have a popper-inner.
Good morning.
Good thing I heard that, Randy or Andre. I'm not really paying attention to this thing sometimes. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the Security Squawk podcast, a special Monday morning edition where we're going to discuss cybersecurity breaches and ransomware attacks that are becoming increasingly sophisticated, targeting a wide range of industries and organizations, from local governments to legal associations and another tribal operation. We'll dive into all of that today. And these recent incidents highlight the growing challenges companies and organizations are having in defending against these threats, with attackers leveraging legitimate credentials, disabling endpoint defenses, and shifting from ransomware to just pure data extortion. In this episode, we're going to explore the latest high-profile cases, including $1.5 million fraud against Baltimore City, ransomware crippling operations at Minnesota's Jackpot Junction Casino, that's in conjunction with the tribe I mentioned, and the Texas State Bar Association breach. We'll also discuss emerging trends such as the rise of EDR killers and what that means to businesses and cyber defenders around the world, and the shift to credential-based attacks, guys, bypassing traditional security measures. So we'll get right into it. Welcome to the show. Randy, why don't you give everybody a little reminder of the fee for the show? No, you don't want to?
Oh, you're on mute, Randy.
I was muted. So the show is free, but it's not free as in cheap. It's free as in a free beer or something like that. So the show does have a lot of value. And we do ask, the only payment, quote unquote, is that you like, wherever you're watching this, that you like it, share it, and comment. So we would love it, especially if you're watching live, if you have comments or questions, we'll try to address those live during the show. Great way to basically help the algorithm and help out the show. So like, share, subscribe, and comment. There you go.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Andre, anything you got to add there, or you're good?
No, I'm good.
All right, let's kick things off with the story. It sounds like, guys, it came right out of a cyber thriller movie off Netflix. Baltimore City recently fell victim, or they're saying they recently fell victim to a cyber attack. But what's actually happening here, folks, is we talk about this all the time. Like, what's going to happen down the road with all of this information that's spilling over onto the dark web? And here we go, right? This is a huge, after the fact thing that happened because of the city of Baltimore's ransomware attack that happened several years ago at this point. It was a large ransomware attack, but the amount of information stolen has allowed cyber criminals to continue ripping government officials off through these different scams, whether you want to call them cyber attacks or what, but they're phishing attacks, they're scams, they're another form of cybercrime that happens every day to businesses that's not ransomware, right? This can be business email compromise, misdirection of funds, right? And that's what happened here with the city of Baltimore. They fell victim to these cyber attacks involving identity theft and fraud, and it resulted in somebody ripping the city off to the tune of $1.5 million that disappeared into thin air. It's like hackers pulled off their own Ocean's 11 heist, but with keyboards instead of crowbars, guys. And the FBI is on the case, but they really don't have any hard, solid leads at this point. And this raises serious questions about how cities are protecting themselves from cyber criminals, especially all these cities that are need to protect themselves after their data has been stolen through cyber attacks, which we're going to talk about other cities that are dealing with a similar event here later on in the show. So stay tuned. But what are your thoughts on this, guys? Why is this happening, and how can this happen on such a large scale? I mean, it's not like $1.5 million is a low amount of money. And based on what I'm reading, it doesn't sound like this was like one thing that happened. It was a series of multiple employees and multiple things that this person was able to pull off.
Okay, yeah. So the cyber attack word, I'm going to throw it more on fraud,
Right?
and because it's yes, they did impersonation. You know, the bad guy came in, he acted as if he was a vendor, but at the end of the day, there was no like multi-step verification or some type of like, hey, we're changing our account number. Let me go ahead and call to make sure this is the right vendor. Because at the end of the day, that's what it was. It was like an internal, let's just say, protocol that they didn't follow, like a transfer of funds policy that they didn't follow because they had the bad guy developed a relationship with the city employees. And for that, they just felt like, okay, I've been talking with the same person for the last 3 or 4 months. It must be okay.
Yeah, so they kind of played the long game, I guess, if you want to call it that, Brian, where they got in, they built trust. So maybe, ABC, let's say ABC Hardware is a vendor. And, I don't know if they came in as, something slightly different, ABC Hardware USA or something like that. But they built basically a relationship with the employees, and then we're able to extract money. I do want to throw out a little extra note here in just a second, but we had something similar happen in the city of San Marcos, Texas, where someone gained some trust and was able to get all of the employees' information. It was all given to a hacker. So the entire city, the entire file was pulled and given to a hacker. But same kind of thing, though. They built trust. You think you know who you're dealing with. So protocols need to be in place, like Andre was talking about.
Yeah, not only do they build trust, but they sit there and they just spy and learn, right? If you're not, let's educate people on how you find somebody sitting in your environment or doing things that might cause you to fall victim to something like this. Number one is they could be in somebody else's email, or they could be setting up things in somebody else's email, like rules.
Yep.
So you don't see certain emails and things like that. And you can, if you don't have somebody sitting behind the scenes monitoring and looking for this stuff, then you're making it easy for cyber criminals to just do whatever they want unnoticed. And a lot of these things, if they can get them set up, they're really hard to find. They're really hard to spot. Because they're hiding certain emails and certain messages from people's inboxes, and that's kind of thing one. And thing two is making sure that your employees are trained and aware on these specific threats. Like some of these out of the box, know before, great training tools, just to if you're not going to do anything, they're very good systems to put in place. The downfall of those is the information might not be specific enough or relevant enough for your business. So, in kind of going a hybrid approach where you're using tools like that for efficiency's sake, but every once in a while have a more specific training built into your employees so they understand exactly what these threats look like, where they can come from, that they could come from people that you regularly do business with, but their email may have been taken over, or somebody may be pretending to be them, right? And you have to, when you become aware of the other interesting thing I have to ask here, guys, is when did they become aware of the first one?
Oh,
right. And then when did they put a stop to it? Right. $1.5 million is a lot of either we don't know what's going on here or a lot of mess ups. Right. So what are your thoughts here, Andre?
So, going back to that, at the end of the day, it's the human, right? Because they bypassed whatever protocols they had or didn't have. And it wasn't even the city that caught it or the vendor who was supposed to be getting the money that caught it. It was the bank that caught it to say, hey, the first one you sent $803,000, it got cashed. The bank flagged the second one for $721,000. So if it wasn't for the bank's internal fraud, no, I was just going to say, if it wasn't for the bank's internal fraud detection, that money would have went out too.
Yes, and I would say that's actually a really good point, because cybersecurity is not just one thing, it's layers. And even if they break into one layer, having other things in place. So I would highly encourage that. I was going to share that we saw a couple of weeks ago, one of our clients got a phishing email from another company. I reached out to that original company. They're not customers of ours, and talked to their quote unquote IT person. And basically it started off like this. And once the company who was breached, once they found out that the bad guys were trying to steal money, the company called the bank, they shut everything down. So nothing was going out. Well, then the bad guys all of a sudden popped up in the middle of that company's emails, and were sending emails and talking. They got in between the company and the bank. So my moral of that little quick story there is the city of Baltimore may think the bad guys are out because they shut down this fake vendor, but how did the bad guys know in the first place to use that vendor? I know they got a lot of stuff online, but how'd they know in the first place to use that vendor? And is the city of Baltimore sure that the bad guys are not in their system still right now, as we speak? And that was just one little trick they pulled off, with other tricks still in their bag of tricks, if you will.
Yeah. And speaking of tricks, one cool thing I wouldn't give the city of Baltimore IT staff credit for was that they had something called geofencing, where basically they blocked emails from coming from certain countries based on their IP address or their house address, let's call it. So in this case, I guess the bad guys knew this, or maybe they just have really bad internet where they live, and they ordered a Starlink, and they used the Starlink, which I guess does what I'm assuming Starlink just puts everybody in a US IP address or in a safe IP address, and doesn't necessarily show that they're really from, Russia or China or so forth. And they were able to bypass some of the security, settings that the Baltimore City Department had.
They also may have had their Starlink registered, like maybe they purchased it in the US or purchased it in a quote unquote friendly country, and then, pulled it across the border and just used it over there. Who knows? But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, hackers' dream for evading detection, right?
Right.
How many of them are going to start doing that? And if they do that, do they even have to VPN and go through all that whole thing?
Yep.
All good
points. You could have also spun up an Azure account, but so
all good points. So
that was not advised.
I think the incident could have been prevented with better training and technology in place. Again, for me, it's scary because this wasn't just one transaction, right? This was multiple transactions that they failed to detect and then stop. And I feel like after like 2 or 3, they should have been all over it. So we will see. We will learn more.
And also, I would suggest to businesses, cities, everybody, don't use the same account for your internet payments that you're keeping your money in. Use a separate account for that, and only put money over there when you need to put it there to make a payment. Then that way, whatever's been given out to the world, less likely to be used for a crime.
Yes, sir. All right, moving right along. We got the Texas State Bar making headlines for all the wrong reasons. A ransomware group claimed responsibility for a breach that exposed sensitive legal information. So imagine this one, guys. being a lawyer and finding out that your confidential case files are now a bargaining chip in a hacker's extortion game. Not exactly the kind of discovery you want to be dealing with as an attorney, right, guys? So what are professional organizations like the state bar becoming? Why are they becoming prime targets for ransomware groups? Like, why would somebody want to go after a bar association? Because at the end of the day, they're just a group, organization that kind of organizes lawyers to like do various things, right? Is there more to it than just that, Randy?
Well, I mean, so first off, a lot of these start with pray and spray, right? Where or spray and pray, where they're sending out all kinds of phishing emails all over the world to try to get into organizations, and then maybe on occasion they hit the jackpot. They also could have targeted this organization specifically for reasons, and those, I would say in that case, one, yes, it's an organization, but they're still going to have access to money, and they're still going to have access to data that the bad guys can either use to like further more attacks, maybe on the lawyers that are associated with the bar, or data that they can sell on the dark web, data that can be used, collated by AI for other attacks. I mean, this is kind of a gold mine because of where it brings together a bunch of organizations and a bunch of information, and it could be a weak point from that perspective, from the criminal's perspective.
So just to clarify, does the state bar in general, in any state, do they actually get like confidential information between? Yes. They do. Okay.
Yeah, because like to my limited knowledge of kind of how this works, at least in my state anyway, like let's like if you hire an attorney, right, and you suspect them of overbilling you, right, maybe and you want to file a complaint against them because you felt like they were charging you more than it really took. You would refer that to the state bar, and then they would open up an investigation. So I mean, they're one of the functions that they perform is obviously licensing lawyers, right? So they're going to have the information and the licensing information of every lawyer in the state of Texas. And then any investigations that are going on by the bar association for whatever reason would be something that these cyber criminals could have their hands on right now. Right. Yeah. So if you're a lawyer being investigated for something, these cyber criminals might know it, and they might be contacting your law office saying, hey, guess what? We're going to let everybody know that you're under investigation for such and such and such and such unless you pay us. Right. And that's part of the reason there's a major concern with sensitive legal data falling into the hands of the wrong people, which is what happened here.
Got it. Yeah. We always hear about hospitals and schools and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting to see if this becomes a trend as well.
Yeah, 100%. So we will definitely see. We'll keep everyone updated. And moving right along here, guys. I thought this was just a cool headline, but not a cool situation. But Jackpot Junction, the casino, once known for jackpots, is now dealing with a ransomware jackpot they didn't ask for. The attack has disrupted operations across the Minnesota Sioux Tribe, and it shows us that even casinos aren't safe from these cyber bandits pulling digital slot machines. Listen, this is the second time we've seen something like this in the last month. Like, what do we think's going on here? You think just a group has just said, hey, look, we hit this one, let's try to go after others? Do you think there's a potential system that they're all using that has a flaw in it that a particular group figured out, and now they're going to try to hit as many of these Indian tribes as they can that run a lot of casinos around the country? And I guess, what are your thoughts there? And then what are your thoughts about just, it seems like not only did a casino get interrupted with this particular attack, guys, but also a hospital or some kind of medical care facility. And as we saw with the Chippewa tribe that was hit about a month ago, it pretty much took down their entire town, right, and how they operate. And it sounds or seems like similar things are happening here. So what's happening?
So I don't want to compare a casino to a hospital, but when a casino is silent in the sense that money isn't, people aren't doing the jackpots and playing the cards and stuff like that, that is costing them a lot of money. So and people are going either on vacation or they have that relationship with the casino. So I think it's for them to be down for 20 minutes is a problem, and that the bad guys notice, and they can now put the pressure and say, hey, you need to pay us, or you need to do whatever in order for your systems to get back up. So I think it's the same sense of urgency, I would say, versus some other organizations that could be down for a few days.
Right, and that's a big deal. Anytime an organization gets ransomware, is that the income of funds, funds coming in could be disrupted. And that can kill a lot of organizations. That can be the end of them if that happens. So yeah, this is not good. And when you have one tribal organization that gets hit and they're overseeing healthcare, they're overseeing the casinos, and everything gets affected, it's a really big mess as well.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Randy angry when the bingo wasn't, when they canceled bingo?
I have.
Yeah. I can't sit still for bingo, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, now that we have 2 in a row, I think casinos need to take notice about, or I'm sorry, these casino operating tribes that are around the country need to take notice that they're a target. And quite frankly, they need to get cybersecurity experts in there across the board, because it's really scary to me that like they can take down casinos and hospitals kind of like in one foul swoop. Like there needs to be some kind of segregation of these networks in some way. And it's the second time we've seen it. So it's really scary. So hopefully we can do better there. But at the same time, we could, it's an easy target, right? Because they probably don't have a huge budget to deal with. At the end of the day, let's be real here. Like we're not seeing things much differently in terms of what we see after the blast goes off in our municipal and state governments, right? They are also going down in similar ways. While we might not be seeing them like the whole entire city be shut down, you do look at some things sometimes and go, well, why is that? Why are all those things down? Why are those, maybe 5 or 6 services that city is responsible for? I mean, it seems like most cities and municipal governments, and maybe even the tribes, they keep their police kind of separate from everything else, but that seems to be it, right? Kind of ends there. So the emergency services kind of run on their own thing, and then everything else runs on, the main thing. And that seems to be what gets hit a lot of times.
Yeah. When I was giving the comparison for the hospitals, the word I was trying to remember was uptime. These casinos, they live and die by being up.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. So, all right, guys, moving right along. Hunters International shifts from ransomware to pure data extraction and extortion. Sorry. And the interesting thing here is, like, I think this was my prediction for 2023 going into 2024, is that we were going to see kind of like a drop off from ransomware. And as that played out, we kind of started to understand why data extortion was a more favorable approach, and why I even said, like, look, this is the way it's going, and this is the way it's going to continue to go, because they can still make money, and they don't have to worry about encrypting your files, right? And there's a huge misstep going on, in my opinion, right now. We're in the middle of it. It has been going on for quite a few number of months at this point, where businesses are still, and I kind of pondered about this on my own channel the other day, where I think businesses, honestly, as crazy as this is going to sound, guys, the breach coaches that are getting involved in these ransomware attacks are not coaching these businesses for what is happening today. And what I mean by that is it seems like we're still kind of in this world of like, oh, I got backups. I don't need to talk to you. I don't need to negotiate with you. We're going to recover from this, and kind of like the proverbial, middle finger right to the, ransomware attackers, right? And these guys are just turning around saying like, look, we have your data. We're going to release it to the public if you don't pay us. And they're like, go ahead, release it to the public. Because they don't understand what comes on the other side of that decision. And nobody is telling them that, and we're going to talk about it in an article here in a minute, that you're going to get hit with a slew of class action lawsuits that you're going to have to defend, that in every single case that we've examined, the amount that they pay in the class action lawsuit far exceeds what they would have paid the cyber criminals. Now, if you want to be noble and not pay the cyber criminals and understand that it's going to cost you potentially 20 times more than what they're asking, hey, if you're in the position to do that, that's great. But most businesses are in the business to protect their profits. And if you're in the business of protecting the profit, you have to make the right business decision. And you have to understand what saying no to these guys and being... And I'm just being honest, like the decisions I see being made out there, folks, are ego driven. Like, we got backups, we have protections, we're going to recover from this. We're not going to pay you. And it's not about the ransomware attack. It's about the data that they're about to sell on the dark web.
Yeah, another thing too is with when they're doing the ransomware, it's very noisy in the sense that it can, trigger things. Once, these advanced antiviruses can now sense that, okay, this is happening, and then lock the systems and so forth. But it's a much easier process to simply copy and paste the data at a reasonable pace. So I think also the bad guys are just realizing this is just so much easier for us to do it this way rather than, put all of the, and especially think about the media attention as well, right? Because now if you can now not get media involved, because if it's ransomware, system stop, someone's on the news, oh, this store is closed for 2-3 days. But if now you can have backdoor negotiations and kind of like, I hate to say it, like more of a gentleman conversation to have like, okay, hey, we have your data. The news doesn't know about it. Your customers don't know about it. Let's make a deal and we'll move on.
Randy, thoughts?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. We covered it all for them. So, all right. So I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on this one though, Randy. This is all kind of related. It's interesting to me the stories we picked them, and as we picked them, I didn't realize kind of how related they were, right? Because if you think about it, what's happening in Baltimore, right, and what we just talked about is all related to data being on the dark web for criminals to come by and scoop up, sometimes for free, sometimes for very little money. And here we are with now 56% of cyber attacks are attributed to involving legitimate logins stolen from the dark web. So hackers aren't breaking down the door anymore. They're just walking right in because they have the keys. And that's the deal. You're handing your house keys to someone who wants to rob you every time you allow a company to have your data stolen as a result of their ability or inability to stop a cyber attack.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple things here. I think that this underscores more than ever, one, the importance of properly offboarding employees when they leave. In fact, I would say that's probably more important, if not exactly as important, as properly onboarding a new employee, because we've seen attacks that used credentials over the past several, 2 years, easy, where they used credentials of employees that had left, but the accounts were never shut down. And then the passwords get out on the dark web, and then the bad guys get them and they just go start trying to log in. And so that's one thing, properly offboarding, but then also monitoring basically the dark web for your passwords and see if they've ever been leaked. And if they've been leaked, and for your organization also, if they've been leaked, change them so the bad guys aren't just getting them and then logging into your whatever account because of, the fact that the password was leaked. And then I'd say 3, turning on multi-factor authentication. So if they do get the password, they try to log in, they're blocked. And then you get a notification at least, hey, somebody didn't have multi-factor and has been trying to log in. Once again, change your password if that happens.
Yeah, all good points. Andre, anything? Good?
No, I'm good.
All right. So, I mean, I agree with all that, Randy. I mean, and one of the things I would like to point out is like what we're seeing here at Exact. And one of those things is like password managers can be huge here, along with what you said, right? And a really good password managers will tell you when credentials that you're using that are stored inside the password managers are exposed on the dark web already. Right? They flag, that login with like a red X or whatever, bring it to the attention of the user and have them go through the process of changing that. Right. So part of the problem though is like the user adoption level of password managers across the board with the companies that we manage is really really a lot to be desired. Right. Yep. People have to understand why we put these tools in place and why they should be using them. Yep. And out of convenience, they choose to still store it in the browser or not use these things and use other methods because they don't understand how these tools can help them. So that's what I'm talking about that targeted training. Like if you see users not adopting like a tool, like a password manager, train them as to what the benefits are and why they should be using it. KnowBe4 is not going to do that for you. Right. Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm talking about a hybrid approach to your security and awareness training. Understand where your particular weaknesses are and build training around that. KnowBe4 is not going to know where your weaknesses are. They're just going to give you canned training that, is good, but still it doesn't do the job 100%. And you need to understand that. And then multi-factor authentication. I would say in the last 3 months, we've seen more attempts to circumvent multi-factor authentication. And as a result of the more attempts, they're successful. And that's scary, right? Because, and this again goes back to user awareness training, understanding the techniques and understanding terms like MFA fatigue and what that means and how that impacts your users and what they can do to make sure that they're not a victim of something like MFA fatigue is really important because the hackers have had a little bit of time now to figure out what works and what doesn't with MFA, and they're getting very good at getting around it, right? So that's my warning based on what we're seeing in this article.
It's not the silver bullet, that's for sure. You need to have it, but it should be one of a dozen things you're doing, not your only thing you're doing.
Yes, sir. So, guys, here we go with the Port of Seattle. They had their own issues a few months ago. And Seattle was hit by a ransomware attack. It's now reported that's affected 90,000 people. While the breach might not sink the port or the city, it certainly raises alarms about how ports handle cybersecurity in their digital arena. So what's happening here in Seattle, Andre? I'll give it to you.
Yeah, so basically they're sending out notification to 90,000 individuals saying that there was some type of data breach. And an analogy I like to give that I gave the other day is like kind of like giving someone an umbrella after a storm. So it's like, wait, you're way too late to give me this. You should have protected me or given me that umbrella while I was while the storm was happening. So everything from PII information, date of birth, social security numbers, driver license, all of that good stuff is now in the hands of cyber criminals. And they're giving these people 1 year of data protection, which is a joke. And most likely, as we have seen, what's that? Yes, yeah. Yes,
I got more data protection.
So okay, yeah. Oh, but too bad. It's not. What is it? It's not. You can't stack it. You gotta.
I'm figuring I can trade it in or sell it on eBay.
There you go. Yeah.
For $35.
There you go, man. So
yeah, and it's my understanding of this incident that there was a ransom demand, and they refused to pay the ransom. You know, kind of in a chivalrous or whatever kind of way, like you were talking about a little earlier, Brian.
Yeah.
And you know, it's probably going to come back and bite them in the butt, because now there's 90,000 people that are affected. That screams class action lawsuit. And then I would also say to everybody listening, freeze your credit reports. There's 3 of them. Just, you know, the different ones that you have here in the USA, freeze them. So when this information gets out, it's not going to stop everything, but at least they can't go open accounts in your name because they know certain things about you.
Lock them. Yeah. 3 things you need to do right now based on the breaches that have occurred as Americans. Like, as Randy said, freeze your credit, log into wherever your health insurance is and find out if that's being used at least on a monthly basis. Right. And then I would say, you know, those home title lock services are probably pretty valuable today. You know, making sure that somebody can't steal your home, move your home. Like, there's enough information out there on the dark web where that's a feasible thing, where cyber criminals can steal titles of homes and then start applying for home equity loans and lines of credit with that property.
Wow.
Those are all things that are happening out there in the world in real time. So be aware. If you don't protect yourself at this point, shame on you. Because, you know, it's only getting worse out there, as this next story will highlight. And this is an interesting one. I thought when I saw it earlier last week, I was like, wow, this is not good. So ransomware crews are stepping up their game, and they're adding these things called EDR killers. And these are tools designed to disable endpoint defenses before launching their attacks. It's kind of like if you don't understand computers, it's kind of like cutting the power before breaking into your house, right? Mm-hmm. So these EDR tools are what cyber defenders like us use to know if something potentially bad could be happening on your computer. And there's various methods that we use to kind of figure that out. But what cyber criminals have kind of figured out is like, hey, we can kind of disable these things so they don't alert anybody about anything. Now, it depends on the tool, right? And some tools are easier. The power's cut on those tools easier than others. And I think this is a good segment to make people aware of that. In my opinion, in the last maybe year or so, there's been some reliance on some maybe more readily available security tools that are built inside of Windows, hint, hint, that people feel like it does a good enough job because of its ability to integrate with a lot of EDR tools out there and do a good job of protecting systems. However, that particular tool is one of the ones that's easily disabled, or the power can be cut easily. So let's talk about it, guys. What am I referring to here, and why do people need to be concerned about EDR killers?
Yeah, so we use it in our industry a lot of times, where if we're taking over maybe a client's account, and for whatever reason one of the other MSP their tools is still there, we can't get rid of it.
You hack? You're a hacker?
Am I a hacker?
Admitting you hack.
Well, there's tools that can now remove, you know, if you got a Trend Micro still there, or, you know, those type of things. So we, you know, that's used, but now we see the bad guys, you know, using this. And I love the analogy you gave with the power, you know, even, you know, now it's just going to make it so much easier for them to, you know, break into these systems. One thing I will say also is you don't want that one tool fits all. Like, you know, don't just say, okay, I got this protecting my entire system. Because let's just say, for example, they do take out, EDR is a fancy word for advanced antivirus, let's call it, right? For the normal person listening to the show. So, okay, so what if that tool that is on that system is now disabled or uninstalled? what other layers do you have, so that now if a script is running or something starts to try to install, can now block it. But if you get that, if you have that one tool that kind of does everything and that's removed, you're stuck.
Well, but at the same time, let's be realistic, right? The EDR enables other layers in a lot of cases, depending on how you have things set up, right? So that EDR being knocked out can knock out maybe 2 or 3 other layers, right? Because if that EDR isn't feeding information into those particular layers, you're kind of screwed.
Right.
So this isn't a tool you really want disabled in the first place.
So, I mean, yeah, that's the main thing, Brian, is there has to be multiple layers. You don't want this disabled. I would say, I would encourage, still use Windows Defenders, what you were talking about. Still use that. It has a lot of great features, but use it also as your canary in a cage. And so you're monitoring it. If it gets shut off, it ought to blow, something ought to blow a gasket, and that ought to put other things in place. But yeah, you're right. And the fact that your EDR gets shut off ought to cause something to blow a gasket, and other things be put in place. So I think it's all part of the cat and mouse game. You know, there's going to be a response here for, you know, blah, 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 blah. We can stop the EDR killers. And so then they'll come out with another thing. You know, it's just a back and forth. I don't think this is the end of the world. It's just the escalation of an ongoing battle, and it's going to keep escalating. We're going to keep hearing stuff like this. I'm not saying this is good, this is bad, but I'm saying it's to be expected, and it's going to get worse, probably faster with the help of
3 minutes. We have one more topic to get through. I will agree to disagree with you on all of this. I will sit here and say that if you're an EDR and if you're a cyber defender, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you're not in IT, you just take this to your IT guy, right? If your antivirus, your endpoint doesn't have tamper protection built into it, then you need to use something else that does. And Windows Defender does it. So I highly recommend that you don't use Windows Defender, because it doesn't have tamper protection built into it. And if they shut that off, your SOC or anybody who's monitoring that is now blind. They are no longer receiving information. So they can't help you either. So that cuts off that layer of defense, right? And that's no good. So find a good tool that has tamper protection that can't be turned off, right? Because like some EDR tools that are out there, just so you know, will reboot the system if somebody tries to mess with it, right? And it reboots it, or it isolates it, meaning it'll deny all connections in and out of it, meaning the hacker who has control of the system, and will only allow like the people who are trusted, meaning the security company and maybe the IT team, to get into that machine until something is rectified. These are things that you need to have in place now to deal with these types of things. And unfortunately, there's a security company out there who sold a lot of people on the idea that you can just run with Windows Defender because their service is also running there. Well, guess what? If you cut off Windows Defender, they're cut off too.
Well, I have to reply back that I'm definitely not saying to use it as your only thing. I was saying canary.
But I highly discourage people running multiple EDRs. I mean, like that's a system resource hog right there. You shouldn't have to run multiple EDRs. Just run one.
Right. So it's built into Windows already. So
yeah, the one that can be cut off, where you can cut the power off. Yeah, let's use that one.
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
It's a speed bump.
No, we should do a whole talk about this, because there is a way to make it think it's in the driver's seat when it's actually not. And it's being monitored. And a whole nother EDR is watching.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
So, I hear you.
It's more overhead. That's all. So finally, let's talk about this. What is going on here? Wow. Chattanooga, Hamilton County both had sensitive data exposed in a breach of apparently a debt collector, guys, proving that hackers don't discriminate when it comes to targets. Now, Andre's got to go, so I don't care who takes it. What's going on here in Tennessee? Randy, you wanted to talk about it, so I'm going to toss it to you and make it quick.
You're tossing it to me. So
Tennessee.
Well, I'll give you the 5-second. Basically, there's a data collection service that they're using, and apparently the data service
debt collection. It's debt collection.
It's something that cities and counties use. I don't know if it's like bill collector, but it's called Nationwide Recovery Service.
Yeah, it's debt collection. Yeah,
and that's the common denominator here. And apparently there's been some kind of a breach and some kind of a leak of data. And that's the very simplified. Andre's got to go.
No, it's cool. I have a few more.
Interesting, what happens here, right, is the city's obviously going to have to deal with this. They're going to have to deal with the data breach side of thing. But the more immediate thing is the emails that are going to come to the people that are in these data sets, right? Saying that you owe money to Chattanooga County, to Hamilton County, and it's not real. It's a phishing, it's an attempt, right? And this is what residents of these counties are going to have to be aware of and stay vigilant around, that they could get a text message, they could get an email that looks like it, and it's going to have a sense of urgency behind it, that you need to pay this immediately. And things like that are going to come through, and they're going to seem real because they have so much information about you and what maybe an invoice or a collection demand looks like. And that's what residents of these counties need to worry about in the next coming weeks and months, while the county themselves get back on their feet and try to figure out how to best protect their residents from this incident.
But we have a battle going on because NRS was breached and the city didn't even know. So they didn't even tell the city about what happened. And now the city is saying, you need to tell the people that got compromised that, they got compromised. It shouldn't be us telling them. And we've seen that. I think it was
Power School.
I don't know if it was Oracle, but it was a few companies where basically
it was Oracle and it was Power Schools.
Yeah, they're
all taking this again. These are these breach coaches. It has to be. When you see it, I've been analyzing these attacks long enough to know when I see a pattern of kind of like the same thing happening, whatever insurance company is throwing whatever company in to advise these guys, this is kind of like the playbook that you see going on right now. This is the playbook of the day, which is exactly this. Like, you don't get involved with telling their people. You tell them what they need to go tell their people. And I've disagreed with that in both instances before, and I'll disagree with it here. Like, if you're the company that gets breached, you're the company that needs to provide the resources and deal with the communication directly yourself. Now, they can help you, but you shouldn't be training them on what to do. And that's kind of what's happening in all three cases here.
Yeah. So,
Randy?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. All right, guys, that's it for the week. Good show. Thanks for the input. And remember, help us grow the show by sharing it out to your friends and family on your feed. And plus, if you give us a like, give us 5 stars if you're listening to us on a podcast platform, we appreciate the support. We'll see everyone next week. Stay safe out there.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.